Texture with salt is probably my favorite of all the texture and specialty techniques with watercolor. I use it quite often. Now, one of the things that I've found with texture with salt is that you really cannot control what is going to happen, but you can predict what is going to happen. Okay. Now, what I mean by that is it's a very organic process. So that's dependent on the amount of water you have, the amount of pigment, and the amount of salt. So those three variables together, I mean, it gives you a lot of different possibilities. All right, and also the kind of salt. So there's 4 variables, right? So I'm using regular table salt. Again, I like to start with a wet into wet technique. And now, mind you, when you're using salt, it's usually going to be either one of the very first things that you do and then glaze on top of it and draw and paint on top of it, or it's the very last thing you do, okay? Because you don't really want to be messing with the texture that it creates, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Now I'm going to go ahead and add some phthalo blue because, again, it's like my favorite phthalo. It's my favorite blue, all right? Notice how thick that is. That's pretty thick, right? Pretty charged color. I'm going to add in a little bit of orange right down in here, so it's going to create a little bit more of a natural color, okay, or a natural brown, excuse me, as they start to mix. Now, as they do that, I'm just playing with this. You can do whatever it is that you want to, right? Now, I'm going to take some salt, and I'm using regular table salt, okay? See, just regular table salt. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to pinch a little bit on it, okay? Some different areas, and then some areas over here, I'm going to go a little bit thicker with it, okay? And then I can just kind of spread it out a little bit more, okay? Now, the thing about this is you're not going to see the reactions right away. You have to wait. Remember, one of the super secret things is patience. Well, yeah, you have to be patient. And you can already see that where it's a little bit drier, it's going to look a little bit different, okay? Where it's wetter, you can see what starts to happen, how it starts to absorb some of that pigment, right? So it's a little bit drier. I'm going to add a little bit more. And there we go. Now I'm just going to leave it alone. And I'm going to let it do its thing. So I have to be patient with this. All right. And you could use different kinds of salt. Epsom salt, kosher salt, sea salt. I use table salt. Okay. So play around with it. Have some fun. Like I said, the salt is one of my favorite techniques to use. Look at the variety of textures that are on here. Now, the salt is dry on here, so what you want to do is you just want to lightly scrub it off, okay? Don't scrub it too hard, but you definitely want to make sure that you get those crystals off of there, so that way you're really left with the texture, and it reveals more of the texture. Now, be careful that you don't necessarily rub it too much because you will take off some of the paint. Do not, I repeat, do not use a wet paper towel or anything, because then you're just going to reactivate the paint, okay? Some people will, from time to time, take an eraser to take it off, okay, which works, but you're also going to lift some of the pigment off. So keep that in mind, okay? But definitely try to get some of the salt off of there.